Alright, so today I'm gonna talk about freedom. Various political systems that promise to bring us freedom, and if it's really so, and what kind of political ideas can really bring freedom. Because we all, of course, we don't want to live our lives under the rule of someone else. We don't want to live our lives told what to do at every step, and etc. Having to so freedom is a goal that many have in their lives. So let's start. And I'm gonna be pretty pessimistic in this discussion. It turns out that there are a lot of ideas that we have laying around doesn't provide freedom at all, as I see it. And at the end, I'm gonna come to maybe a surprising conclusion about what can actually bring us freedom, even if it's maybe not what we would like to hear. So let's start with the libertarians, the neoliberals, the free market economists. They often talk a lot about freedom. So you would think that if we just embrace all the free market ideals like libertarianism, voluntarism, and free market capitalism, then we would all be free. And this assumption is based on the idea that property ownership. They often say that if you own property, then you can be free, because then you own the product. You can own the product of what of your work, and then you're independent from everyone else, etc. And you can be free. We picture this as a farmer that works his land and he eats his produce, etc. It sounds all very nice and such, but the problem with this idea is that if that is the case, then what happens with the person who don't own any property at all, or is indebted to someone else, for example? Then of course they must not have they under this system they don't have any freedom at all, it turns out. So I like to say that under capitalism, those who own nothing are slaves under those who own everything. And then the argument is, of course, like, yeah, but you can just get a job, etc., and you work your way up, etc. But is that really the case? I mean, today we have automation machines, etc. Today it's very feasible to have a fully automated factory. You don't need any people to work, or you can, etc. So with automation, and now especially with AI, it becomes increasingly possible that meritocracy is dead, essentially. So you can't work your way up anymore. So your life as someone in capitalism, under libertarianism, under free market capitalism, your life is dependent on someone else giving you a job. And I would say that can't be freedom if it's so, because your freedom shouldn't be dependent on if someone else says yes or no. So that's the first kind of debunking I would like to make, that no, free market economy is not the same as freedom. We can't get freedom from free market economy. It's not the same. So the other idea that is common these days, liberal democracy. We can all vote in elections, and we can all vote in elections, and we can elect a leader that can give us policies we want, and out of this we can become free. The problem with that is that democracy, someone like it's a common saying you hear on the internet, like, democracy is the same as two wolves and a sheep voting on what to eat for dinner. Democracy can only guarantee freedom for the majority, but what about the minority? And for example, say, for example, if the majority in the population are Muslims, for example, they would vote to impose Sharia law on the country, etc. And that would mean the majority non-Muslims would not be free anymore. They wouldn't have any freedom under those laws. So that again, so liberal democracy can also not really guarantee freedom for people. So what can give us freedom? Then we get into the category of rights, like human rights. Like maybe we can guarantee freedom for people if we assume some rights. And the first right we've already discussed, kind of the right to own property. Like if you have the right to own property, then but we already discussed that and see how that cannot give freedom for those who don't own anything, etc. So a right to own land is little help for those who actually don't own any land. So that is not a right that can give people freedom. Another right is that voluntarists like to talk about is the right to, the right to your own body, the right to no one should do harm to you. What to say? But yeah, you know what I mean. Could that give us freedom? Assume no one has the right to hurt us. We can just walk around in this world, but can that give us freedom? The problem with that is that humans, we are like biological beings. We are animals, and we can't live isolated in space. Like if you put us in deep space, we will just freeze to death and die. So we need to connect with the ecosystem that is needed to sustain the life of our body. So we need some place to hunt for animals, some place to grow animals, some place to grow food, some place to... Otherwise we die, essentially. Or you need air to breathe, we need water to drink, etc. So it turns out just having the right to your own body doesn't mean you have the right to life, because life needs more resources than just your body. So that is also not very helpful when it turns... You can't have freedom just out of that right also. And then we have also welfare rights, like the right to a house, the right to health care, etc. Many philosophers talk about those as welfare rights. But the problem with those, as libertarians rightfully point out, is that welfare rights has the problem that if you have the right to get healthcare, for example, then that means that someone else has to be forced to provide that healthcare or house or whatever. So that is also not a very good path towards freedom. And then I have so it's not really looking very good there is another idea, georgism, the idea that all people have a kind of inherent right to the earth or the natural resources. That is, Henry George promoted the idea with a single tax movement, that you should only tax the land, and that land should, the revenue from that tax should be redistributed to all people somehow. And maybe if we have a pure redistribution without government, you can get if every person has a right to a share of the earth, that could kind of bring freedom. The only reason when I was younger, I was a georgist. I believed in the single tax idea and the idea that everyone should have right to a dividend from the natural resources of the earth. But the reason I'm not a fan of that anymore is because if you think of it, it has to do with nativity and the way different cultures reproduce. Some cultures, like the European culture, we have had a tradition with the modest families, like 2 or 3 children, and and we try to raise them and educate them, etc. But other cultures often have much higher birth rates with like 5, etc. And I think it's not really fair if we implemented a pure georgism or single tax or geolibertarianism, where we redistribute the value of the earth equally among all. It would benefit in an unfair way cultures that have a high nativity. They would just push every other culture out from the system and etc. So that's why I also don't really think georgism is a path towards freedom either, or a good path towards freedom at least. So what is left then? So as you can see, it's pretty hard to build a political system that guarantees freedom for everyone. It's not really that easy to build a fair system. So what's the conclusion then? I would say that now we come to the conclusion in this, the kind of tragic realism in this, that actually to reach freedom, everyone has to the only guarantee that every person has is their own potential for violence. And when I say violence now, it doesn't have necessarily need to mean violence. It can also be disobedience and breaking the rules, etc., civil disobedience. Because at the end of the day, I think we all just have to value our freedom and struggle for our freedom, and that's all we can get from a political system, any political system. So that is kind of my take in this. And so where do I end up then? What's kind of my political view here? It's that human rights, as we have it, I see them as kind of problematic, because first of all, as we saw, they can't really solve the problem. Human rights can't give us freedom anyway, because they have various different problems. And also, and in that they are kind of it's like a lifeboat with a hole in it. It's like it's just a wishful thinking. It doesn't. We've seen countless of times in history when human rights have been broken, etc. So maybe that's not a good foundation to build a civilization anyway. And the other reason also I don't like the idea of human rights is because they can be misused in a number of ways. As I see it, a lot of refugee proponents misuse human rights when they see someone come into our lands and they say, yeah, but he is in danger in his homeland, even if it's not so easy to determine, etc. So out of human rights, he should stay here, etc. Everybody should have a human right to be wherever they want to be, etc. So I think human rights were used a lot to dissolve the borders and to do all these things, and also to push all these welfare rights that is actually a burden upon those who work hard to build a system, etc. So, and also another important aspect of this is also the other reason I don't like human rights is because I think capitalists they hide behind the idea of human rights, because they don't want to be taxed. They don't want to be. So what they do, they say they have the idea that property ownership is a human right. So with that, from that logic, they can conclude that actually taxation is theft. So that we. So the government shouldn't even have the right to tax them, and we see that now when Gary Stevenson is is trying to promote this wealth taxation, but there's an incredible resistance, like psychologically, for these wealthy people to actually contribute and tax. And I think the reason why they're so resistant is because they have a religious belief that their property is their property, and taxing them without permission is theft. You can see they have this kind of really stubborn view in this. So that's another reason why I just want to, no human rights anymore. We want to have a different operating system for civilization instead. So what is that? So the idea I want to come to is that I think that civilization should be built on social contracts instead. And because, as we saw, the human potential for violence is the only thing we have to guarantee our freedom. And by the way, that is just, if you notice, like in the USA, they have that idea already in the constitution with the right to bear arms, etc. So this is not very, in a sense, it's not a very strange thing to say. So if our potential for violence is the basis, the only guarantee for our freedom, we should see humans as sovereign from the start. And sovereign humans could unite under a social contract and form a nation. And the nation could go on and form a state, and the state can then claim land and defend land. And under the state, individuals within this nation state should be allowed to own things, but it's really just the real ownership lies in the hand of the nation and the state, actually. So that is how I would see how I would like to see the operating system for a new civilization, essentially. Instead of seeing humans as having rights, we see them as sovereign, and then they go together, they write a social contract, and they form a nation and they form a state. And what is new about that I think is that in politics today we often hear people say, like, the social contract is broken, the politicians are betraying us, the rich people are betraying us, etc. But somehow nothing happens. I mean, if a contract is, and also, did you write a social contract? Or I didn't write a social contract. Maybe we should start with doing that. Maybe we should start to, like, put the pen on the paper. We the people, we in this nation have this and this agreement between each other. And also that we should be able to, like, if you're writing a contract, even if it's the same contract, you also have to have trust in the people you write contract with. So if someone shows up but you don't trust them, they have some foreign religion that you don't trust, etc. Maybe you can say, no, I don't want that person to join me in this contract. And I've written a book about how, I mean, how do we write a contract with millions of, like, thousands and millions of people? That is, of course, a technical issue. It's a little bit more complicated. I envision that we could do it with blockchain and with blockchain and mutual selection of individuals, and we form nations and states through that, and that is the foundation then of civilization. We and then within each nation, of course, we could use democracy and such things, but the foundation is the social contract. So yeah, maybe that's So what this offers essentially is that you have the ability to team up with the people who are aligned with your ideas, and then you together claim a piece of land and or claim or like bring assets to your nation, etc. And struggle for your shared future, essentially. But of course, this of course maybe sounds a little bit like if you go back to mercantilism, etc., like that we have like city states that are at war with each other, etc. At the end of this also, of course, to find peace, we need some kind of, I think, and to write these social contracts with a lot of people, I think we need a revival of religion. We need a formalization of ideals that we can all accept within a nation. And I think I have my own, you can see in the channel, I have my own religion, reciprocalism, that is built on curiosity, kindness, forgiveness, and reciprocity, for ideals that are good for cooperation and good for building a state, a nation and a state. So that is of course the soft part of this, that you need a religion to unite, so you can write the social contract, etc. So that is kind of how I envision us to find freedom, essentially. Skip the ideas with rights, that doesn't work, we already tried that now. The new idea is social contract, and I call this new ideology social contractualism. That is what I have kind of named this idea. So that is a new idea how to bring freedom to this world. So let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts about this, if you have any, if you think this is good, if you think this is bad. So that's it. See you and bye bye.